Okay everyone, thank you for coming to the last reading of today. It's very nice to see so many of you here. So I'd like to introduce you to Tenement Press, and also we're going to have Chris McCabe read from his forthcoming Tenement title, Dread by Ghosts, which will be released at Halloween. And I wondered how many of you would get that. And then we will have Maria Slevner. It's a launch for Maria, and her book is titled Midsummer Song. Okay, so we'll have Chris first, and then Maria. And this reading is going to be a little bit longer than previous readings, so if you need to leave early to look round the fair, please feel free to do so. Just leave quietly and Matt will let you out. Otherwise, settle in and enjoy the reading. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. The book physically isn't with us. And I want to start with that because I spent a lot of time with Dominic working out what this manuscript has become. It's a mix of, it started off as a diary, it's got poetry in it, visual poems, mini essays. So the conversation with Dominic, what is it, how to describe this book? Hybrid sounds like a bike, cross art sounds like a community centre. So there's something really elusive about this book, so I think it's quite right that the book isn't with us. But I can tell you some things about the book. It's an interdisciplinary book, let's go with that. It was written by hand for 3 years into a journal. It started as a diary of dreams and became increasingly focused on coincidence, weird culture and walks in strange places. I was first introduced to ideas of hauntology by the writer Mark Fisher, like I'm sure like a lot of you. And I really, even though I read Mark Fisher long before lockdown, I felt there was something quite immediately hauntological about that time. What Derrida describes as a spectral moment, a moment that no longer belongs to time. He didn't say that about COVID because he wasn't mad. But Derrida uses this phrase from Hamlet a lot of the time as out of joint, and that felt immediately true to me. So from spring 2020, I did what a lot of other people who like hauntology do, bought an analog machine, bought a typewriter from the ultimate kind of incarnation of retromania, eBay, and made the visual poems which are in the book. And what's been wonderful working with Dominic is how we've kind of shaped this mix of things into something that holds together as a book. And we tried to represent what a glitch might be in literature. It's quite easy to see that visually on a screen or to hear it in a sound. But Dominic really pushed me to make the text glitch. So that's what's going to happen. There's a few people that come in and out of this kind of journal aspect of the book. One is the poet Sarah Crew, who also happens to be my wife, friend and poet James Byrne, and a poet no longer with us, Niall McCabe, who the book is dedicated to, passed away in 2022, and my son as well, who had a really hard time in COVID. It affected him mentally, and he worked his way into my journal in quite a ghostly way sometimes, even though he is alive and well. Not only whence comes the ghost, but first of all, is it going to come back? Is it not already beginning to arrive? And where is it going? What of the future? The future can only be for ghosts and the past. Jacques Derrida from Spectres and Marks. Not one moment of time is lost, nor one event of space unpermanent, but all remain. William Blake from Milton. Time has stopped, enough to make me buy a notebook, close the laptop, to feel words going through the body, touching the page, trying. Events are still taking place in some version of time, Only now the events are so basic and played over on repeat, like My Bridge's horses. It's easy to mistake still images moved in rapid sequence for motion film. No, time hasn't stopped. It's bagged itself up, I dreamt, like gizzards inside some huge game bird, presented to humanity that's gone meat-free. People stared at it, hoping it would switch itself back to life. After a while, realising that was pointless, humans made their own bird suits, wing-waving to neighbours. Flightless, they built their own nests and watched, waiting for the big screen of their lives to roll again. Marky Smith, or MES of the Fall, buried hundreds of messages in his music, loaded with cryptic meanings, impossible to fully decipher. These are the seeds of his immortality, each utterance loaded with clues to his creative psyche. Weather Report 2 from Your Future Are Clutter 2010 begins in a way that promises a simple lyric confession from Smith, then the dial switches as he occupies the voice of what sounds like a man from Oxford who misses his family while working away from home. The song ends with Smith, rasping and guttural, speaking out of time, leaving us guessing as to where or when the message comes from. Recording of Lost Wonder. What is it, London? You don't deserve rock and roll. No paranormalist trusts the spirits they receive through EVP. They can be tricks, ruses, or fragments of different voices from different times. MES's lyrics should be read in this way too. He wrote with a galley of the dead on his shoulder, condensing each lyric with multiple meanings, using these voices as layers, speaking in tongues. There is, of course, the possibility that he is literally channeling voices from other places. His song Bremen Nacht Alternative from the Friends Experiment 1988 is about an experience he had in Germany where he described his body being used as a writing tool for the dead. I've been to Bremen twice before on tours. The first time I just puked my ring up all day, spewing up this black liquid. When I went back there this time, I just went crazy. The gig had a really low steel roof. It was this German polytechnic with steel everywhere, metal shutters on the windows, which made it real claustrophobic. The dressing room was like a fucking gas chamber, man. We go out and play, and I'm just feeling worse and worse. I just felt like a different person. I was snapping at everyone. In the morning, I had all these handprints on my leg, bruises from the inside that looked like a child's handprints. What I've settled on at the moment, everyone else says it must be the Nazis, they must have killed somebody. I've settled that it was probably the firebombing in the Second World War, and it was like an air raid shelter that had been bombed. In Bremen Nacht Alternative, MES describes his experience as having been one day possessed, and invents a semi-made-up German, as if the Bremen dead are trying to speak through him, but the message is being disrupted in transmission. Ich raus mach schnell aus das Bremen nicht. A translation back into English of MES's invented German lyrics would read, I leave real quick the Bremen night, I out and make the Bremen night, I out make the Bremen night quick, I from quick make the Bremen night, I make crank slow and out the Bremen night. 14th of September 2020. Ghost at Sea. Ghosts at sea specialise in eating other ghosts. It's the way it is, just like business. A career charting a life like a dreadnought without a captain, steering itself like a magnet through the Bering Straits of 50 years, finding its outpost in photographs. Time to live. But how do you practice what was only a shadow? How do you dance on an island? It's time to take a slow lunch outside a window, watching the street, everything you didn't know. 19th of October 2020. I crank slow time this Bremen text. My dreams are expanding. Last night I dreamt I was walking the house, picking up books, flicking through my father's old copy of The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I felt I might be about to cry, realising my dad is dead. Odd moment, welling up with a copy of the Third Reich in my hands. Then the dream changed, and I'm trying to avoid someone I know. I hire a bike and jump on it. As I cycle, it begins to fly just like in E.T., and I'm escaping London from height, gambling on landing on a roof somewhere. I come down slow, still in the city, touching down on a pavement in Westminster Square. I walk onto an area of grassland where people wearing black suits have formed a group. My older brother, an old school friend, and the poet Niall McCabe are all taking part in a port drinking session. I join them despite not wearing a black suit. The dream shifts and I'm in a bookshop where I see a section called Been Living Like This for Days. When I wake up in February dark, the house silent and cold, I write the poem to echo the dream. Been living like this for days, same thoughts, same things, been prowling these floors, looking for a loophole, been raging in my mind and stuck behind glass precise, like a cicada, dehydrating in prayer. Been watching my son become trapped in his loops, like a circus artist practicing art in view of his critics. He's on the same wire, but hasn't learned to fall. Been learning how to watch without knowing what to say, seeing the extra minute of sunlight make tracks across the floor each evening, gaining a centimetre more each day. Been thinking of the past, how we have all lived like beatniks now. Even the mistakes earn their ticks. Been watching the outside world as if it's a cover, been waiting for it to change, for the hours to start to race like untrained horses through the streets. Been learning new words each day, wondering when I'll use them. Been trying to read, been trying to listen, even tried to write something down. Stepped into the shadow song of a blackbird, met my mum in the park, walked through the graveyard, been around this way before, I know I could fall, I know I could pull through, watching my dreams instead of the news for some kind of prophecy, been wondering who will be when this is over. 8th of February 2021. I out, house quick, dark Bremen packed. Cause and effect, everything that ever happens to a person takes place because it was once dreamt by somebody else. 16th of October 2021. I make house from dreams, Bremen Nachtbook. Shared addresses. After meeting with friend and artist Robert Montgomery, he emails, "Is your address 26 Castlewood Road in Liverpool?" he asks. Oddly, I used to live at 26 Castlewood Road in Stamford Hill, in the Jewish neighbourhood near the church. Odd psychogeographic coincidence. I recently came across the Castlewood Road in London, the one Montgomery lived in, while reading an edition of the London County Council bomb damage maps. That street, I'd noticed, had survived the Blitz, just like the one I'm writing in now. I crave Neue Life from Bremen Page Blank. Meeting Mark Fisher. Sometimes I meet Mark Fisher down the pub. The good thing about hauntology, he says, is that no one really dies. They just live on in a present which doesn't happen. Fisher always looks so normal with his baggy jeans and Stooges t-shirt. Last time we met, he recommended Japan, Tricky and Burial. I spent the next 3 weeks writing out messages. What the fuck, Mark, this stuff is awesome. Before realising I don't have his number. Instead, I write things down that I want to ask him next time we meet, such as, if culture is moving sideways, will it fall off the edge? And if we're haunted by unrealised futures, do we live in a past of dreams? The landlord accuses me of talking to myself. Yesterday someone told me Mark Fisher had died. It occurs to me he's been a ghost all along, and now it's only a matter of time until we meet for real. 18th of February 2022. I created this farm Bremen black text space. My son is turning himself into a ghost. He vapes outside school to remain translucent. A father is an alloy anchor in his blue water. What can a father offer compared to the depths that magnify his darkness in those zones of the euphoric. Drainage, days leak around his dives, and a parent's brain is mostly sponge. We mop up what he spills and drink it. 14th of May 2023. I cradle auf sich die Bremen night soup watch. The debt collector of Lambeth. There's a man I see on my mornings in London when I'm travelling to work who hovers close to the filthy streets around Waterloo, trying to sweep up dirt from the pavements using 2 pieces of card. As you get closer to him, you can hear the scratch of those cards, the grating, agitated motion, his legs bent beneath him, as if there's an urgency to the task, and maybe there is. Gather up the dirt before there's more weight in detritus than London can hold. His plastic bag grows incrementally, evidence of his life's work. Behind him, in the tunnels beneath the overground trains, are tiled mosaics of works by Blake. When I watch the dirt collector, I've often wondered about the potential meanings of a line by Blake. And watching the man now, it strikes me as written for this precise moment. There's a grain of sand in Lambeth that Satan cannot find. 18th of November 2022. I Achtung Deek Switch Bremen Ranch. Dream of Niall McDevitt. Sarah had a dream that Niall McDevitt isn't dead, but is living in a castle near Edinburgh. In the dream, Niall's partner, the artist Julie Goldsmith, says, "I'll show you where he is, but you can't tell anyone." Then Niall walks down a huge internal staircase wearing an elegant velvet dressing gown. Of course, Sarah thought in the dream, this makes far more sense than him being dead. When I tell my friend James about the dream, he says, "You do know Niall used to live in the grounds of a castle." We didn't know that. 21st of December 2022. Wir sprechen mit Sparks Bremen Dead Kitsch. A biography. When I was new and full of days and my birth was in darkness, I crawled through heaven's bandwidth to the sky's thorny outage, placing my cross in the hull of a time-blind star. I steered and cauterized my overspend on toys, walking where the graves were greener, into a headwind of no-shit Shylock. The globe rolled across the shyster sand, and the bittern was generous. Would you take the cup off your ear? I entered corrupt arcades, sand forts glistered in a cosmos. I thought it was Florida, it was Albion forever. I lay in bed when I cusped and was hacked by the sun 9 times, a jellyfish veined with lumens. I never poked that stingray. There was a time in my life when it was trimmed like the marble round on a clock, and I watched a moth the size of a beefsteak climb the glass with locked prehensile eyes, it with its face like Mozart. That was the year the meteor landed at my son's feet, magnetised by fate. He said, "It's called sand, Dad, because it's between sea and land." They said the sea was a mother, but to me it was a kitten that had long since lost its mother. I could hear the inside of snails and sometimes see with the lens of a kestrel, living for this, the hour when my lungs outspan like a jackdaw. God's spirit was the same as my spirit, so I said 21 prayers and wrote each day, knowing that Christ was the same as Bacchus. I believed in a reverse paganism in which objects manifested as gods, spirited. I was played by the weather like a mood board and could see blue in storms and red in snow. Alcohol made my teenage anxiety subside. When I was 40, I cut back drink to reduce my anxiety. My son became a found poem. The alphabet lived in the clouds. Leo licked and August tanned. He roared each summer inside the sun. Dreaming obscura, we go on, dreaming obscura into the future, any minute now, 6th of July 2023. appendix, McCabe, from cabals. There is a real hill of dreams, but its very splendour is up for grabs. Cardboard signs go up in cover of darkness. They want it to become a mall of dreams. We much prefer the hill. Their magic is stronger than ours, but the hill of dreams will live on when we are inside it, under it. Now, McCabe, thank you.